Joining us now is Skye Perryman, President and CEO of Democracy Forward. Skye, I think that in all of the celebrations that were had this week about passage of this bill and signing of it, what was missed were some of the loopholes in this bill, which is the fact that if the material that is released jeopardizes the active ongoing investigation that Pam Bondi suddenly announced 4 months after the administration said they weren't going to be releasing these files.
After Trump told her to do it.
That they wouldn't release those files, that the bill doesn't waive grand jury secrecy rules, and that if there's anything that constitutes as an invasion of privacy, the DOJ has the discretion not to release that information as well. I mean, that's a lot. That gives the DOJ a lot of discretionary power here. Can you, given those tea leaves, what do you predict is going to happen within 30 days about these files?
Well, the administration has continued to stonewall, and so I don't know that we're going to see them not stonewall, but they're under a lot of political pressure now to release the files, and I think the pressure is on. What our lawsuit does, we've always been about the cover-up. We've always been about what is the administration and DOJ really trying to hide there and wanting to understand the communications with the cover-up. So I think that case will be proceeding in federal court while there will be, pressure under this new law to release the files. But I do think that you're going to see the Department of Justice continue to try to stonewall, continue to try to blow those holes and those loopholes. And it's probably, frankly, why the president felt like he could do an about-face and now sign the bill, because he wants
to continue that about face in terms of releasing dribs and drabs and trying to convince the American people that they're being transparent, but withholding the most damaging information? I mean, is that a scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to try. They have to answer now because the pressure is so high. So they're going to try to act like that they are releasing something. But the real concern is going to be, are they really releasing the files that need to be released for the American public to understand all that happened and why the president has gone in circles with himself trying to withhold these files from the American people.
And more importantly, giving it to the committee, because there's two different iterations, right? It's like what you give to the committee, which, as Robert Garcia, the ranking member on the committee, said needs to be unredacted, including classified information, because they are allowed to see that. And then they will, I assume, decide themselves what needs to be redacted, et cetera. I want to play AG Pam Bondi talking about this investigation into Democratic connections with Epstein, because it's something to behold.
Information that has come for there's information, new information, additional information, and again, we will continue to follow the law, to investigate any leads.
We did not edit that, people. She said information that many times that quickly, yes. The thing that I found most interesting about that was that President Trump told her to do this, right? She had already told the American people that there was no there there. Kash Patel, the FBI director who's standing on her left, went in front of Congress, said there was no there there, even kind of insinuated that no one was actually trafficked, that the women were not trafficked to anyone. Help me square that circle. What new information could have possibly come up with after all of these investigations?
Look, I mean, we're going to have to continue to see what happens here. But I will tell you, I mean, this is why we are fighting so hard in court at the same time that Congress is pushing on this, because we believe that there has been a massive cover-up between the FBI, the White House, and the Department of Justice throughout this whole time.
And under different administrations, too.
Yeah, I mean, that will be, we're very interested in seeing that. We do believe there's been a lot more with the White House here directing the FBI, the DOJ in improper ways to try to cover things up.
Skye, help me understand something. Why are we waiting on DOJ and pressuring DOJ to release files when, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was Congressman Garcia, the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, who sent a subpoena to the Epstein estate that resulted in the 20,000 documents that we ended up seeing, 2 weeks ago? So why aren't people, somebody, y'all, going to the Epstein estate and saying, give us what you got, give us the rest of what you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is ongoing, but I don't, federal courts are going to have different ways of looking at what files have to be released by whom. And I think the main thing here is that the government actually has disclosure obligations to the American people. Private entities, right. I'm not saying that there aren't really good arguments there, and I think there's a lot being done and will continue to be done. But we really should not lose focus of the fact that this is a federal government, that a MAGA-run federal agency and federal government that ran on conspiracy theories around the Epstein Files, that many people have been threatened across this country with misinformation and disinformation all about conspiracy theories around Epstein. They were going to be the most transparent in history and release all of this. And then, of course, the minute they get into power, they start clamping down and trying to further manipulate and withhold things from the American people. That's what we have to keep our focus on. That is what I think the federal courts will have the ability to really force, which is why we have filed suits against the way the Department of Justice and others have handled transparency requests. And I think that's what Congress can push on, too.
All right, Skye Perryman, fortunately but unfortunately, we're going to be talking about this for a very long time, so we will have you back,
of course.
Be in court. Yeah, thank you very much, as always, for coming to The Weekend.